competitive on the global stage, or if you're going to be strictly local, if you're going to be strictly local and you still want to go into this kind of production, you have competition from importation. So now
Mhm.
you need to be able to work with the with the leadership, or I mean with the government, as to be
Mhm.
able to impose certain taxation on importation.
Yes.
Therefore, these can actually allow these new industries that the
Mhm.
government is trying to promote its competitiveness internationally, due to the fact of imports, where they are more competitive in terms of productivity.
Yes.
This is why they are able to reduce prices. Okay, so
Mhm.
if the government doesn't support these industries, there is no amount of capital, investment funds you will pour into this industry that will be able to allow this industry in that country to be competitive. Like what Doctor was saying just now, many Africans in the diaspora have been
Mhm.
looking for ways to actually accumulate capital and be able to channel this capital into
Mhm.
various industries. In
Mhm.
my view, I think what we call Africa, or what we call the African economy, we need to be more specific. We need to break things down to, if we are going to medical equipment production, if we are going to commodity processing, if we are going to retail management operations, or we are actually going into processing of food use and all that kind of stuff. Uh, we need to have what we call special funds that are targeted into the production of the equipment, into research, into operations, to these kind of investments. At the same time, do not just consider these individuals. They only have to have what we call the PPP, public-private
Mhm.
partnership, with the authorities as well. And these authorities, they play, even if they are not bringing in the funds, and the diaspora are going to bring in the funds, they actually need them to be able to implement policies that can actually help these local industries to be able to get off the ground. It may not be in rebates in terms of what they export and then they get some money back, but it will actually be in terms of limits to importation of goods, just as we experienced China, they did. They imposed tariff on so many other items. It can only be produced in their own country. But at the same time, they didn't just do it just for doing it sake because they have the power. But at the same time, they were forcefully encouraging their citizens and graduates and what you call the professionals into this industry and
Mhm.
developing in this industry until they are able to compete on the international stage. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for your insights on this. This brings me now again to a follow-up question, and I would love to hear the answer of both of you doctors. Um, do you believe that distance virtual assistance in the payments of the funding can work? In that, I mean that when payments are going to be made, it's not directly to the person who is developing it, but more to what he needs directly. So it's not him paying, but actually the organization that is funding it. Do you think that can work? That could be a solution?
Can you throw a little light again on it? Like virtual.
Okay.
The
Just then
persons
I hear a very big problem that makes it difficult, right? Which is the funding that is not being used correctly. Now, I've seen organizations now going in, for example, virtual and distance assistance in farming. Basically, they're looking at your farm, they're funding your farm, they're helping you, they're educating you everything from a distance, and they are paying directly in what you need. Let's say you need fertilizers, they are paying for the fertilizer.
To be sent.
They are even paying your workers. They are managing the whole thing actually from a distance. Do you think this can work for Africa?
For some industries, I would say yes. But at the end of the day, I mean, for some industries, yes. But even still, we have to look at it and map it and then put the control measures in place. Because at the end of the day, who is going to harvest the product, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you can harvest it and sell it to someone else, right? Yes. So we have to put control measures in place.
Okay. So you think that definitely the government should be
it could be private, either private company, because I mean, excuse my language here. If we look at performance-based and non-performance-based, private sector companies, in terms, they look at things in a performance-based arena, right? So I'm thinking it could be another private company charged to do that, and for them to be charged, the right documentation needs to be done. They need to sign an agreement and say that if this thing comes out of that, this is part of, we are going to give you this. If this happens, that there should be negotiations and agreements to make sure that.
Yes, of course. For example, if you're a farmer with your own land, that you take the land. If it's not.
You have your own land, we are going to give you everything you need. Whatever is going to come out, you'll be owning maybe, let's say 40%. The 60% is going to share with whoever is going to monitor you, and then the actual person supplying with the equipment. There should be some kind of negotiation. So the people who are on the ground, which is a private company, which could be even an African company, will ensure that that happens, because at the end of the day, they're also going to earn something from that. So they will make sure that.
Are these companies already there?
So what now?
Are these kind of companies already there?
Oh, even if they are not there, it can be formulated. In that case, they know there's something in for them. So it could be people in Africa who do that. There could be intermediary private companies, because they know that equipment will come to them. They will give it to the farmer. At the end of the day, what they produce from the farm comes in. They have a percentage of it, and then they have to give weekly or monthly reports to the company and to the company externally, or to the diasporans externally. And the diasporans at one point in time, they also have to be able to go there. They can even have, they have to go there, and they have to find a means of also making sure that whatever report they receive is correct. They don't have to wait till 1 month, 10 months, or whatever. Maybe weekly, they have to find a way, send someone independently to go and see. You know, instead of bringing 1,000 people, one person can go and see and ensure that the report matches what is on the ground. And maybe when it comes to harvest, they can have one person from the diaspora go and make sure that the right harvest is done. Or the company, which that thing is being exported to, will be down there to ensure that they are receiving the quality and the quantity that they want. It can be done.
Okay, that sounds very positive, and glad to hear that. Now, another question that I had is, there are many inventors and innovators back here in Africa and outside. If the university system, wait 1 second. If the university, if the university system, there is, has a lack of investment or funding, aid their R&D work output, what are your thoughts on how they can be enabled to deliver to society their credible works or products?
IP is a very big space. It's a very tricky space.
Okay.
IP is for economic reasons, right?
Yeah.
It's just for economic reasons, or economic purpose. So at the end of the day, you're going to sink money into it, get the patent, and then have a royalty for about 20 years, right? Time is of importance. There's something called a strong patent and a weak patent, right? You can file a patent and not knowing it was a weak patent. You can file a patent and not knowing that it was a wrong time. So patent has economics built into it, and you need a patent strategist. You know, I've been talking to a number of universities. Yeah, you need a patent strategist, because you're going to put money into it, and then you need the timing right. There's something called provisional patent that will give you room for 12 months, right? After the 12 months, if you don't apply for the actual patent, you lose the patent. It becomes public knowledge for anybody to tap into it. And also, when you start the patent process, and then you didn't get funding to continue to write it really well and get people to plan very well, time is taken, right, to earn the money. So it can be done. And I've been talking to a number of investors in Ghana to help them to really understand the process and how they can make money. It's not for saying that I have 20 patents, I have 50%, and then you walk around with it. You can do that, filing provisional, your name will be published. But to make money out of that is the difference. And also to sound a note here, there are 4 different types of patents. We have the utility patent, which has something to do with functionality. We have the design patent, which has something to do with appearance of a functional object. Let's say I have an engine, it works, it functions. I have a patent on that. The way the engine looks, right? I can have a patent just on the look because it's a functional object. And then we have the utility model patent. That is a small patent, very common in China, and has something to do with manufacturing. The way the handle feels, the way the handle looks. Let's a lot of things about it. And it's, I think Germany, most manufacturing-based countries have that. And also we have the plant patent, like a special plant patent. So what we are talking about here is the utility patent, which is very important, and there may be design patents. Those are the top 2 in the patent realms, which I'm thinking we need to really understand that. It could be a topic that maybe one day I may have to present and then show the intricacies, because I'm sharing with some universities in Ghana the intricacies. And then now they say, wow, we never knew this, we never knew that, right? First, it should be driven by the economic means, and then you should have a purpose for it, and you should have a market for it. If there's no market, you have to develop the market, and we have the push and the pull. And what value is the patent bringing out? The value is very important. And currently, though we have the competitive way of pricing, we have the value way of pricing too. Look at that, at an iPhone. You can listen to radio, you can use an app to do so many things, you can attach equipment to it, you can check your, you can do about over 50 things. Imagine those individual things in there, if each one of them was manufactured separate, or you're supposed to get them separately. Look at the cost versus the cost of an iPhone. So we have to look at the value, and the value should be built back into the innovation system to be able to make this holistic way of getting our money back. At the end of the day, nothing is for free. If you are doing anything, and if you want Africa to grow, we have to think about, how do I pay back government to set up and do things the way it's supposed to be done. And then another thing I also realized about Africa is the private sector. Because it's performance driven, we have to empower more private sector to be able to support Africa grow.
So basically what I'm hearing a little bit of you is, anybody who has created this patent or is the owner of such patent, at the same time must be an entrepreneur. Because it's of no use if you're, for example, a university grad and you have all this on your name and it's all published, but you don't monetize.
It doesn't have any money to it. You will lose it because you have maintenance fee. Even if you get a patent, there's maintenance fee. You don't need to be an entrepreneur, but you have to have a group, right? You have to work with a group. You can have an investor, you can have an entrepreneur, and you become the patent person with the idea. So you have to be a group working together with an economist to bring this thing to market. You shouldn't be too much individualistic. You might not be able to win very well unless you have all the 3 together.
So your advice for people who are creating patents is work in a group that can help you to monetize it.
Monetize it. So, but look at the economics first to be able to develop the patent. If you look at the big investors in the USA, like MIT, you see 3 students. Look, you see 3 students came together, they did this and did that, right? It's because they all have different strengths and they have to complement one another. But behind that is the right documentation that at the end of the day, when this go forward, this is your percentage, that's my percentage. The agreement need to be there, or else it will fall apart. So it should be done in a group way. And we all know that 10 hairs are better than 1, or 2 hairs are better than 1, right? It might all not reside with you. Other people have to come in, and you have to be able to write the document very well to invite more people in.
Now, since there are many listeners, I know for sure, I would like to hear your advice on, and maybe you can write it for us in the in the chat. If somebody has a patent or is producing a patent, is there a guideline for them in how to monetize this? For example, to have how to build this group, what should be in the group? Is there something like that? Is there a website? Is there an organization?
You can Google and you can find a lot of information, but you should know that when you Google anything, there's also chaff with it, right?
Exactly. That's why I'm asking.
I've been working in this space. I've been working in this space for a long time. So over 20 years. I started my first patent some years back. And you can even Google my name and see how I shared my vision, how I started, how things came together. I'm willing to write something. People can put their requests together. I'm in contact with George Ebube, right? So what I'll do is, whatever questions that come out, I can put the solution and everything together and share with us, people who came to this conference. So I'm available to talk with
So
anybody.
maybe you could leave us your details, your contact details in the chat so that people can reach out, because I always say...
just Google my name. If you Google my name, you'll find me easily.
Okay.
My contacts are online. Just Google my name.
Okay, so all of you there who are listening, please do Google his name and reach out and, make sure that you can monetize your patents, because otherwise it's of no use, all that hard work, and not making a cent on it. It's such a waste and sad. So my next question, sorry, this is for, sorry, I really boomed you with a lot of questions. I'm going back to Dr. Sorry, because your name, I keep forgetting.
Is it Opposite?
Opposite, Dr. Opposite? Opposite?
Yes, well pronounced. Opposite.
Oko?
Opposite. No, it's not becoming interesting any longer. Opposite. Opposite.
Opposite. Okay. Sorry for that.
Just call me Jeffrey, okay?
Okay, thank you.
It's okay.
Yes, I had some questions for you as well. It was very interesting, all these insights that we're getting here tonight. I have this. Wait. Oh, this. Are the patent laws in Africa strong enough to ensure African inventors are protected and their works not stolen abroad?
Could you come again with the question?
If it's not? Sorry?
Come again with the question, please. Did you say parenting?
Are the parent laws, the laws in Africa, strong enough to ensure African inventors are protected and their works not stolen abroad?
Oh, thank you very much.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah, I got the question. Thank you very much. Looking at things Africa, laws generally are quite porous in Africa. Enforcement and implementation are always very, not quite efficient. This is why we've not been able to actually develop very well, because of the porousness of our laws. And talking about patents, usually for Africa would depend more on the African institutions. Would depend more on the African institution being able to come up with various patents. Like I said, Africa has actually gone back in terms of technological advancement. Unlike before, the government was actually aware that the universities were actually needed for technological advancements. Okay, so therefore, as individuals, for individuals to be able to come up with their own patents and various research, financing of research, most Africans generally cannot afford this kind of research. the cost of actually registering a patent in itself is expensive. And if you actually just want to make your patents just for the local or just for your country, how well can your country, an African country, protect its citizens from patents that has been actually initiated? So our institutions are not quite strong to actually even enforce the protection of African or patents made by Africans. So therefore, most African inventors who are able to actually fund themselves or through direct backing from one or two influential individuals, they have always had to go make a filing at the US, mostly in US. They actually have to still go make another international filing to actually protect their patents. So therefore, talking about actually developing our own technology, we'll still we were told, you asked how and in my view, I believe doing business in Africa, it's still being done in a very primitive approach, in a family kind approach to businesses. We need to do business on an economic scale, on a bigger scale. We need to have corporations that are employing people in the thousands. And we equally need to be able to develop this same company and then be able to expand it to various regions, and then management comes in. So I was reading this empirical analysis about African companies generally. If we look, most of the multinational corporations in Africa employing big labor, you find that most of them started with some Western management style in Africa. Okay, if you take Jumia, for example, is Nigeria's biggest e-commerce company, equally Africa. But looking deep down at the founders, you still find out, okay, it actually
This meeting is being recorded.
Research or patent is actually solving a problem. This is where patent comes up. Okay, isn't it? This is where patent comes up. Then you equally have to look at the economic benefits to these patents. Even if it's in pharmaceutical, they still have to consider profitability. And coming up with a solution.
This meeting is being recorded.
Yes, we're not even talking about these researchers. They need people who actually fund them and finance them. And this has been inculcated into their system, like in the US, to some extent, the US government actually does provide various tax cuts and benefits to companies, private sector companies who actually encourage research through universities, okay, various universities. This is why these universities have huge funding, even more than some governments in Africa. Okay, if you go to the likes of corporations in Japan, like what the doctor was explaining in terms of utility patents, whereby sometimes it's just the outward appearance that needs to be modified or redesigned, and then a patent is filed for this kind of copyrights, okay, and this kind of patent. This is very rampant, like you said, in manufacturing-based countries. And like Japan, if you look at how Japan runs its research, it's usually the private corporations, they work with directly with universities, okay? Working directly with universities, they actually prefer problems to them that they need solutions on. Okay, so the universities actually now provides funding to students to be able to provide such solutions. Okay, so now these solutions are actually right away implemented into the real economy or into real manufacturing, and directly everybody gains. So it's not like the American system where it's a winner take all. Even in the American system, if you look deep down, it's not a winner take all whereby the researcher takes all the benefit. No, he has private corporations backing him for half a decade, for years, whereby they actually legally do negotiate in terms of ownership and that kind of thing. Okay, like with pharmaceuticals. Okay, so Africa needs to actually approach research for us to be able to develop homegrown technologies where we can have African corporations actually work with private universities in various fields. If you take Nigeria, for example, it being the oil sectors, or we're talking about the energy situation in Nigeria or in Africa, or we're talking about the refining of chemical products or various commodities we have in Africa. I mean, these technologies are not so difficult. Like I said earlier on, the biggest drawback is we actually do not even have the production of simple basic things that steel materials, iron. Okay, so actually still in this age has become something like wood, whereby you actually need it in everything. Okay, so private corporations, if Diaspora are actually thinking about setting up various enterprises in Africa, we should actually stop trying to approach businesses and enterprises as a family business. We should actually be able to outsource various part of actually running a company to as much as managing the fund, to as much as employment and outsourcing all these things to different companies. All these are still source of employment to Africans. Okay? You're going into agriculture. You are here in the diaspora. You want to be the one who employs the manager. You want to be the one who is talking to define what you call it. You're the one talking to your accounts manager. At the same time, you want to be the one who supervises daily output and everything. No, we need to have institutionalized corporations where things are done in an economic scale. Therefore, capital is harnessed from these big corporations. Then research can actually come from home, from within Africa, and work with our institutions and be able to provide that capital to talented students who can actually be able to develop whatever solutions to our product. Okay, now we have Africans who can actually control robots in actually carrying out surgeries now.
Okay.
But as Africans, we have not been able to develop basic technology mechanization that can. In Nigeria, we have this traditional food. We've not been able to develop something as simple as this mechanized equipment that can actually help us turn our what you call it, cassava, or we call it eba, to turn it. Are you getting what I'm saying? Yeah.
I hear you, and that's where my next question is coming. 1 second, because now it comes. How can the diaspora in the tech industry collaborate to accelerate tech growth back home as their contribution to the Africa's awakening? And in this, I mean, for example, if the diaspora is living, let's say, in China, I just heard Dr. Alexander talking about you must work in groups, right? to be able to get anywhere. Now, if somebody who's in the diaspora is creating this group, I was thinking especially for the protection of the copyright, since, as I just heard, the laws are not yet adequate enough to protect. How about diverting and let the diaspora protect it in the diaspora?
Yes.
In the group. If it's protected within the group, isn't it automatically protected everywhere?
Yes. Patents have jurisdiction. You can file a patent and say, I want this area, that area, whatever, but you have to pay for them, right? Yes. So that can be done, but there's money involved, right? And then the money involved that you need to recoup means that what? I'm going to file in that area. Is the money I'm going to recoup from that area going to be enough for the payback? So those are things. So it depends on that.
If it's a group, it can be done, right? Because if you're working in a group, if I'm in, let's say, Kenya, the other one is in Nigeria, each one pays for his own. I think that's what I think, but I'm asking you, is that possible?
Yes, it's possible. You can put as many people as possible on a patent, right? And they can all pay, and they own the patent. But at the end of the day, patent is for economic reasons. Before you file a patent, where you are filing the patent, is it going to make the money to pay for the patent? Because you can acquire the patent, you have to maintain the patent. That means maintaining means that every year or every sometime you have to pay money to maintain it, or else the patent, you lose it. So apart from getting the patent itself, hiring a lawyer or filing it yourself to get the patent in your hand, the maintenance is another cost for the 20 years. So all those costs, when you add it together, I'll share with us the various costs, right, of having a patent to maintain it. It could be in the.
How much is it? How much is the cost?
It could be 30,000 or more to acquire and to maintain. So if that thing is not
$30,000 or
yes,
$30,000, okay.
Dollars. But that's even in the minimum, because in case someone infringes you, you have to go to the court to defend your stand. So it's not as easy as we think. I can send you more information. I mean, if there's a common platform, I'll share more information for people to understand how to acquire a patent and to be able to maintain the patent itself. Because
that is in Africa, right? Maybe we should make a WeChat account for you so that everybody can tap in, or a YouTube account.
Yes, and I can explain things to us really, really well. Share more information for people to read and understand, and you realize that it's not a cookie cutter. There are intricacies. Someone can even come after your patent and try to invalidate your patent. You have to get the money to defend yourself in the court that your patent is original, because there's a small overlap. It's not as easy as we think.
Isn't it even worth to go and make a patent in the end? Isn't it better to just start production like the Chinese do?
And also you can have a patent and not produce. All that you're going to do, I'm having the patent, and it's going to allow me to import into the country. I'm having a patent, and that patent is going to help me to license it to other people to produce, to pay me for my patent. You know what I'm saying? So it's not always to produce. There are so many aspects that you can earn from a patent. But to maintain a patent, you have to get money to also defend the patent.
Wow.
Okay, I'm sorry to jump in here, Ria. I'm sorry to jump in here, but we have some questions in the audience, and we also have Pepe, our other moderator, who
excellent. Pepe, can you take over
we need
now?
to jump in here, and one of our guests is also in the house. So Miss Ria, if maybe you can take, we have two hands raised up, including my own. Mr. Ken, Mr. Ken has been dying to ask. Mr. Ken has been dying to ask a question. I also have a question, and then maybe we can bring Miss Pepe to get the chance to also moderate, if you don't mind.
And I think two of the participants are here. I think Dr. Hannington is here, and I think Eric Masaba, if I may say, so that we don't forget about them.
Okay. Yes. Yes. And Mr. Ken, maybe you can ask your question. Maybe I will ask my question as well, and then we can have Pepe, our other moderator, bring the other guest. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. My question goes either Dr. Alex, Mr. Professor Haniton, or Mr. Eric Masaba. Any of them can ask. I don't know. I think for me, I like politics. I go the political side of it. I don't know. I think for me, it's not even investment. That's the problem in Africa, or trust. The first thing I think about for our dear speakers, do you think at any point dumping is part of the main problem we have here in Africa? Because you see, like Africans are content. We are like content. Oh, iPhone 14 is coming next year. Oh, Maserati latest model is coming next year, and nobody is doing anything. Nobody is producing. Do you think to a certain extent dumping, if our government systems can try to reduce dumping, or I don't know, do you think it can go a long way to let us think and produce and get to work?
Ria, can you say it, because his line was breaking up?
Sorry.
Ken's line was breaking up. I didn't hear almost everything Ken
what
said.
What said?
Okay, let me take it again.
Ken, okay, I will listen so that maybe I can. Okay, yes, say it again, Ken.
Can you hear me now? Everybody, can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
This is my problem, because I always, anything, even eating, I go to the political aspect of it, because without politics, there's nothing that exists. I'm asking this question. Now, I think there's a lot of dumping going on in Africa, which is like slowing the way we think, the way we do things and all that. So I'm asking you, because in most cases, I've seen Africans being content, like naming, oh, iPhone 14 is coming. This time around it's going to be very good. Maserati, the latest. Africans are very good in naming the new technologies that are coming and things, but no one is thinking of maybe taking the bold step or doing anything. Do you think at any point, if our government or our authorities, our authorities try to maybe reduce level of
Wi-Fi is based. Me, I can ask Mike this moment. Alexander, can you hear me?
Wait, I see that you put on how you call it subtitles. Maybe you can read the subtitles. Can you see the subtitles?
Okay.
You're not getting me.
Yeah, you were broken up, Mr. Ken.
Somebody
actually, we heard Mr. Ken very well. Actually,
okay.
Miss Waters was actually, your line was breaking up.
Yeah, I think I got kicked out, so I turned off my VPN, and then I'm using my data now instead of my house Wi-Fi, and I hope that makes a difference. Okay. So did Mr. Ken ask his question?
My question was about dumping. Do you people think at any point one of our main problems could be this dumping?
Yes.
In Africa.
Dumping? Are you saying dumping?
Is an opportunity to me.
Okay.
It has a good side and has a bad part, right? The dumping means that the technology is available to you to learn from and to make modifications or come up with new ideas to be able to make your own. That's what I'll say about the positive side. And other places, whatever is coming from elsewhere, they put a premium on it so the way that people don't buy it and dilute whatever is there. There's always a need. But if we, Africans, we don't fill up the need, we don't develop something to fill it up, something will have to come from somewhere, because most of us are traveling outside. We've seen it and we want to enjoy that back home. So we'll bring it back home. Until something is made in Africa of equal value or even slightly lower value, which is almost getting closer to that, or something we can work with, the dumping will keep on coming. And it depends on what policies are there to make sure that the dumping doesn't affect the local industries that exist, but rather look at the positive part and take it to renovate the system and to be able to make difference with it.
Because I don't know, I'm asking this because, Doctor, I think sometimes our leaders do it deliberately. Like in Africa, no, I must be very frank. In Africa, it's only in Africa you get things like, you still get archiving systems. You get to the ministry, the file papers like this, And when you go to ask, you want to search your document, they tell you to pay a searching fee. So I think maybe because of fraud and maybe cheating.
It should. That could be one. It should be digitized, right? Digitization
Yes.
will save time.
Yes.
Digitization.
So why
are
they deliberately not doing it?
I don't know that part, but we all maybe some of the things we are talking about. If the private company starts looking at that as a problem, look, Africa is a land of riches. You know that. What you've just said is a problem, and you've identified. So there's a need. Why don't you set up a company which will do that digitization, work with the government, and get all those things? Because if you go to even the hospital, you see the papers a lot before they can file your file. But if it's digitization, that's going to help industrialization. Industrialization cannot occur without digitization. So you've identified a problem that I'm thinking that you can start up something and we will help you to do it. Because digitization is a big problem. Yes. So digitization is a big problem of Africa.
In my country, we sing it every time. Taxation and the government keeps telling us no, it's good to be collecting the money like that.
But we are doing less. We are doing less manufacturing. If we are doing less manufacturing, you should know that economics will not balance very well. Also, another thing is importation. You know, you can make money quickly from importation, right? So when I import and I sell, it's a buying and selling. But to do a manufacturing, which is original, you have to put money into it. Maybe the terms of office for each government being 4 years is so short that they might not be able to do well with that. Another thing could be the national agenda. Does the country have an agenda? What is the focus? What do they call importance? That if this government comes, another government comes, are they going to follow the same thing? No. What I've come to see is this government comes, whatever they are working on, when the next one comes, they put it somewhere and then start something different. There should need to be continuity. But what is driving that? What is driving that? It could be that if I continue with yours, you took the money, you did whatever with it, the money is done. When I come, I don't have any money to operate, so I have to start up a new project, right? Which will give me fresh money to operate. So maybe the terms in office need to be looked at. Because before, to me, when I go to Ghana, what I hear is more politics, right? But what are we doing about manufacturing? Because that's the core of everything. We manufacture, we sell, we get more money, that will help. And what is the system in place? We have to put a system in place. But who is going to put that system in place that we all in Africa or we all in the country will follow? So there needs to be a national agenda or an African agenda. After have started, how can we support after that distant branches into the various countries with different modifications because the cultures are different? It's a big problem, but the problem means that there's a need that we have to build on to make a difference with that. So identification of the problem, I'm happy we just pointed out one, and we have to build on that to make a difference.
Okay, thank you so much. So I do have a question, but I'm going to wait until the end so we can give our other guests the chance. Pepe, you can, I guess, jump in here as our second moderator for the evening and give the other two guests that have come in the opportunity to speak. And we do have a question from Bridge Afrique, but please let's have our new guest and our new moderator come in and we'll ask those questions later. Pepe?
Good evening, Ms. Emilia. I'm so sorry for coming in late. I had something I was doing and I'm sorry I couldn't even put my video on. It's actually very inconvenient now, but I hope to do that very soon. Yeah, I just came into the meeting, so I might not know the particular speaker yet to be addressed. Please, may you remind me?
Okay, actually, I was already in the questions section. And the other thing is that I hear now some of the speakers that were not there before, that they have finally arrived. If you could just please, I don't know who are the speakers who now have arrived. Can you please identify yourself?
Yeah, we have Mr. Eric Marisaba in the house. He's the inventor of the UK.
Oh, okay. I can see he actually raised his hand. Okay,
Excellent.
I'm going to give the floor to you, Mr. Eric. But before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Eza Chukwulopepeshwa Obianujunwa. Everybody calls me Pepe. Yeah, I'm from Nigeria, and I'm also glad to be one of your moderators today. So over to you, Mr. Eric Masaba. Please, can you introduce yourself and tell us what you have for us today?
Okay, hello everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. I'll give you a quick background. What you've been discussing is actually very relevant to myself. I'm a UK-based inventor. I'm obviously of an African origin. My parents moved here from Uganda in the 70s, done all my education in the UK, and I've been very fortunate to have worked in a variety of sectors, mostly aeronautics, electricity research, and then investment banking and hedge funds. And then I was able to set up my own company. I was able to find collaborators from my university friends and colleagues from the investment bank. And what we did was we actually created a huge amount of property for what people know as Uber. Now, long before Uber existed, about 6 years before they officially claimed they'd invented whatever, I filed a patent at the same time as Facebook got started on the biggest claim of the patent is geolocation of social network members. This actually underpins a lot of things that the United States military does globally when it blows up people in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nigeria, wherever. The fact is, in order to locate somebody who doesn't want to be located, you can track their friends or close relatives who may still have a locator beacon, also known as a phone, and you can infer where they're going to be. Now, we use that idea to basically say, what if we tracked all the vehicle resources in the city and we're able to basically direct them to people who needed them in real time, and those people could see when those resources were coming to them, how many people were in there, and basically everything you know is Uber and Uber Pool and all those things. Now, the whole point is, with all the goodwill and with all the laws in the world, if you have something of significant economic value, your only option is to get a powerful political backer, because there's no law anywhere. It's not about Africa. There's plenty of things which are just ignored in Europe, in the United States. I've spent £400,000 to date on the patent over 15 years. I've seen Google and Facebook and Uber file copies or make similar claims in their patents, which they've filed anywhere up to 10 years after mine, and they've had theirs awarded. Now, the key thing here, as everybody knows, my identity was deleted from UK records from 2007 right up until about 2018. So I didn't actually exist. That's the sort of power people who want to take intellectual property can go to. The biggest thing we need as an African diaspora is to undo this idea that all Black people are stupid brutes, because that is highly believed in the West. So when somebody like me comes along and says, well, actually, I'm the guy who invented Uber and here's my patent filing, it was unbelievable. People just refused to believe it. It didn't matter if I showed them patent filing. It didn't matter if I showed them videos of myself with people who then went into UK cabinet. Nobody wanted to believe it. And I think the biggest thing we need to change is the perception that Blacks can only be sports people or musicians and whatever else. Now, as we all know, there's plenty of Black inventors, but what we are suffering from is a credibility factor, which makes getting that investment and getting this over the line harder. I've been very, very fortunate to have had, believe it or not, the backing of the late Queen Elizabeth II, may she rest in peace, and her son, Prince Charles, now King Charles. They somehow had found out about me, and so I got some support, which probably prevented me being killed, or worse, being tortured and then killed. That is just how patents go. This has happened throughout the history of all technology. As to address the other point about dumping, Russia is facing massive sanctions, has been since 2014. Back in 2018, President Putin actually said, bring the sanctions on. They help us by denying us access to your stuff. We develop our own, or we make our stuff better, which has actually happened. Africa could take a real leaf out of the book. Now, obviously, somebody gives you something free, or take it. That's what the Chinese have done, and they've moved their economy forward from what was effectively medieval standards of living for 80% of their population 40 years ago, to now arguably the largest economy in the world by quite a margin. I mean, remember, We can argue that America is still the biggest, but that's if you ignore their debts and you value derivatives and wherever else. But in terms of pure manufacturing, Russia and China are really going there. Africa has the ability to start developing its own infrastructure. The most important aspect of that is investment in people. What we're doing here right now by supporting one another and saying, hey, I can see that other Africans can invent, have invented, will invent. That's really important. That is developing our natural resource, our most important natural resource. So fundamentally, I think that dumping problem, sure, use the stuff, but there are lots of other technologies which in the West have been suppressed because they're powerful people who suppress them. For example, the Czech Republic, which was basically backward compared to Germany or the UK in Europe, leapfrogged ahead because the unions within the telecom companies in Germany and the UK would prevent fiber being put in. But Czech Republic didn't have any real infrastructure, not the amount of copper wires. So when they put in their phone networks, it was by German companies who wanted to try the latest stuff. So they went full fiber straight away. Africa has that potential. For example, there's different types of computing, trinary or higher order logics, which in the West and in Taiwan and in all the places where semiconductors are big, people will say, nope, we're never going to change from binary because we've got tooling set up. If you have no tooling, you have no fixed costs. These leapfrogs have happened consistently in technology. Germany leapfrogged Britain with the Navy because Britain had coal-powered ships. Germany went straight to oil power, or Japan went to naval aviation because they couldn't afford to build that many battleships, for example. These things happen all the time. And if you look at Apple with the iPhone in 2007, Apple was nowhere in 2005, nowhere. It was Nokia, it was Palm, it was Sony Ericsson. And look how quickly they were left behind and wiped out. That's the speed of innovation. Ironically, the final point, when there were patents on Kodak photography, whatever else, people just fled to the American far west, where the East Coast lawyers couldn't catch up with them to enforce the patents. And I'm not saying ignore patents, but in reality, a lot of the biggest companies just ignore patents. They will literally just take your stuff and then say, so sue us. No, you can't. We can tie you up in court forever. The only option you've got is to find somebody who's going to do a deal with you to take on that larger entity. And that's usually difficult because they're interlocked with a lot of actual other companies, and they will change everything to just change the rules to suit them. However, if you go far enough away, you can get a head start and you can change the rules of the game. It actually happened with aircraft patents in the 1900s because the Wright brothers actually were ignored with their patents, and effectively the governments of the UK, US, and the United States basically settled with them and said, we're going to make the patent available to everybody, we'll pay you off a big sum. To answer a quick question I saw there, yes, I wrote their patents myself, but I had a few large patent companies involved. And what then happened was Google hired my patent lawyer. So the chap was called Tom O'Flynn. And in 2008, he was seconded to Google from the law firm where we were paying him about $50,000 a year. And he now works for the office of David Drummond, the chief legal officer of Google. Google saw my patents. Their head of patents, Michelle K. Lee, was then made head of the patent office. And on her first week of work in 2014, she awarded Google a patent, which was already mentioned by other things they'd seen me do up to 7 years earlier. Complete corruption. And they don't care because what will happen is they just say, so sue us. Oh, no, you can't. You'll settle. That is their strategy. So
my
this whole
dear
idea...
excuses. 1 minute. Hello, sorry. Mr. Eric Masaba.
Yep.
I'm so sorry because we are almost running out of time. So
I'm sorry. So that was it. That was my point. That was it. So what I'm saying is you've just got to get people to, big enough people to help you. Sometimes that won't be the case, but Africa itself, things can be implemented there and they can be done. And the world order is changing. Russia and China are going to have significantly more power. So you'll find a lot of Western firms may just simply want to do a deal with local African inventors.
Thank you so much for that. Soon we'll, because of time. And
I'm sorry.
We still have one speaker, and yeah, people came in a bit late, but still we want to give everybody a chance. So forgive me for this one. But if you maybe can put in your contact details for later, if people want to ask you more questions about this.
Okay, absolutely.
Please do. Can I go to the next speaker, Peppy? Can you please introduce her?
Okay, all right. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Mr.
Pepe.
Eric Sabar, for such a wonderful speech. Yeah, actually, we have a question for you, but that will be later when the other speaker finishes, okay? So we don't waste much time. Yeah, thank you so much for that insightful information. Okay, I would want to welcome Mr. Ambassador Ibubisike.
Hello.
Ambassador George Ibubisike, are you here?
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, I am. Can
All
you?
right. Over to you, sir. Please just briefly introduce yourself and share with us what you have for us.
Okay. My name is Ibube George Ibisike. I'm a scientist. I'm a businessman, serial entrepreneur. I speak, I write, and this particular subject matter is, I would probably say, what my existence has been about. I've remained in Africa because the biggest question has been, how can we actually bridge diaspora knowledge from people of Black descent with those back here, whom also are craving the opportunity for that bridging in order to create a viable technological possibility for Africa. This is very key because Africa has all the natural resources. The challenges remain knowledge about systems, particularly those around patenting, those around system manufacturing, the relationship with government, which has to do with policy, areas like protectionism, all these with what, all the speakers have said, Dr. Alexander, Dr. Oposia, Eric Masaba, and there's also Dr. Hannington who is going to speak. He talks about, like a model and a framework of how we need to grow Africa from inside outward. Now, I will refer to Eric because it's very unique. His story keeps me awake at night, having to have created what will have been some of the biggest opportunities for us in terms of taking the glory and earning the funds. Let me say this clearly. If Eric Masaba were to be paid today like he won in court, he'd probably be worth $50 billion or something of the sort, if not more, from what the likes of Uber and Google have stolen. So I think he may have said a lot, but if we put it in numbers, he would be on the Forbes list. This is the kind of thing that people of Black descent have been able to create and have been stolen from them over the years in the history of technological development. So it's good to put that in perspective. So I will leave it at that so that you can get with Dr. Hannington and any other person that needs to speak. But thank you very much. I'm very, very happy we could make this happen today. Kudos to Bridge Afrique, Ubuntu DNA, and every other person who is on here. There's also Uche Eziokeke, who is, I don't know if there will be time for him to say a few things, so thank you very much all.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Ebube Ibisike. Thank you for that. So over to you, Mr. Eric Masabar. There's a question for you that I would just want you to answer, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, someone asked you something about patents. Do you mind if I read it out for you, or you can pick it from yourself?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Dr. Alexander asked a question. He said, please, did you write the patent yourself? And another thing is, do you know anything about patent invalidation, even if you have a patent?
Yes, I do actually. I wrote the patent myself and then brought lawyers on board, including this guy called Tom O'Flynn, who now works for Google. And I think the plan was in 2006 or 2007, Google wanted to acquire everything. It just then happened, long story, which I'll make available on some of my podcast stuff later. They thought it would be easier to just say I didn't exist and take the patent. As for patent invalidation, prior art is everything. If you can show that what you invented existed before the other people filed it, they're invalidated by default, and then they'll have to pay multiple damages. They'll have to pay damages in some cases if it was willful volition and willful violation. It's 3 times. So what they did in my case was just say I didn't exist in the first place. That was the easiest and fastest way. By the time they figured I'd be sick of not existing, I would just settle. And they did make me an offer of a very, well, about 1% of the amount, which was fair back in 2016.
Now, from what you said, I could sense out some challenges in trying to validate yourself sometimes, especially with the Black people. What happened? What happened to some other person that might not have such privilege?
You'd never hear about them. That's a big problem. And what we need to start doing is what Asians did, Koreans and Taiwanese and wherever else. Let's just say that generally when you hear about a startup founder, even if it's European descent, they'll have a sidekick who's Indian or Korean, Japanese or Taiwanese, basically. And same when you look at papers. Now, there are plenty of highly accomplished, highly smart Black people, people of African descent, but that's just not seen. Once that gets changed, and films like Hidden Figures, which talks about the history of some of the Black female mathematicians at NASA, that helps. But remember, that only came out in 2015 or 2016. Okay, so what Abube said, and I'll tell you quickly how I met Abube. I met one of Abube's colleagues in China. I was going to Qingdao, believe it or not, and I was flying back to Shanghai, and we were the 2 Africans on the plane. So we got talking, and then he asked me if I would come with him to the Ethiopian consulate in Shanghai. He had a meeting, and then we did, and we got on, and unfortunately things have spiraled out of control in Ethiopia, but they were very pleased to meet a fellow African who could promote science. And that's the sort of thing that has to happen. I'm really grateful to Bridge Afrique magazine, Mr. Colowell and Michael and Abube have absolutely given me faith that the African diaspora can recognize talent in one another. And what we need to start to do is put that together. I'll say as well, I know a lot of people might not particularly like the British Empire, the former British Empire, Queen Elizabeth, wherever else, but the only reason I'm alive, I only found out in 2008, was a personal intervention on many periods from the Queen herself. I've actually got letters from King Charles. So there are ways and means to do this. Of course, there are challenges, but there are always going to be challenges. If you want something simple, stay asleep. If you do anything worthwhile, you're going to get pushed back. The harder you get pushed back, it means what you've got is valuable. And this has been quite a story. Last week, I had somebody, a big American Hollywood actor, ask me if I would feature on his Bloomberg show on advancements in science. And when I was talking to the producer, she was like saying, this is a Hollywood script. This story has to be told. So what will happen is at some stage, Google and Facebook and those others will just simply quietly settle. Let's just say I put a provision in for UK politicians and the royal family to get their cut for helping me, because there was nothing in it for them. And let's just say 11, 12 years ago, this looked like a lost cause, and yet they still helped me. What we will then do is we will fund that diaspora thing properly. It'll be one of many funds. There are many African billionaires, but Africa needs to start believing in itself. Don't ask white people, Chinese people to believe in Africa when Africa doesn't believe in itself. Everything is there. Things can be turned around in between 10 and 15 years. China did it. We can do it.
Yeah. But the main issue I noticed with some Africans that are really good with some technology innovation is funding. You know, some people just tend to just be in the middle of the road and just stay there. They don't know whether to go forward or to take a step backward because of funding. So I would love to know if there is any organization specifically funding those like innovators.
I got my funding from non-Africans, bizarrely. All my funding came from people I work with, they all happen to be white Europeans. So if you've got a good idea, if you can show value, you'll find that talent has no color. There's no barrier there. I think the biggest problem is Africans don't yet believe in themselves. They still are waiting for the white man to come and say, this is what you do. I was very fortunate, and it was kind of the other way around for me. I've had a lot of people my whole career come and say, but Eric, you can come up with this. You're really smart. Can you show us how to do this? And then they've listened and they've told their bosses and their friends, and some of those bosses and friends have been as high up as the top of the royal family in the UK. So it can happen. I'll be clear with you, when I was going to do the worst of it, of course I hated it and I thought, this is horrible, they've taken away my life. But you've got to just think, if you've got something worthwhile, you will get pushed back. And you go through it and you'll get through it. And there'll be a bright light at the end of the tunnel because you've made that light. And as far from funding goes, I had absolutely no funding. I'd been banned for life, still am, from the United States because of this thing that happened. I have the same profile as somebody the CIA wanted to put in prison. So I had no money when I came up with this. I didn't get any money for 18 months after I'd started the patent process. I needed to raise most of that money just to file the patent. As I said, £400,000 to date. So that's something like pounds a year, actually a lot more. It's some ridiculous visibility. I had visibility because I'd worked in investment banks, I had pieces, and that's more. Funding will come as long as somebody knows you're there. You could have a shop. If you don't have a website, if you don't have enough word of mouth, if you don't have physical presence, nobody will buy from you. And that's not anybody's fault but yours. If nobody knows you're there, nobody knows you got the goods that they want, you're not going to get funding. Once people know you're there, you're going to get the funding. And that's what visibility is about. I think that's the most important thing. Even if we could do things like spelling bees, or you know how the math league challenges in the United States are always won by people of Chinese descent. We need to see black people winning those math competitions, and then you'll find investment will follow more in a way than any other website or anything else could ever do. That's what we need to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more like trying to proving yourself very well and showing that you know what you're doing.
Absolutely. And you find I got that money because of people knew I'd done this thing. They knew my reputation before.
May I ask one question?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, sure.
In what areas, Eric, it's to you, right? In what areas are we doing well technologically as a continent? Which countries are leading the way on the continent?
Technology-wise, I would say that Ethiopia looks like the most, despite all its political troubles, it looks like the most technologically advanced African country. It looks like a European country in terms of its airline and infrastructure. It's putting satellites in space, and it's a big country, 100 million. But I mean, if they can resolve, which is a big if, a lot of the political issues, that literally is like the most advanced African nation. That's the sort of African nation which can have not just its own space program, but can sort out infrastructure. After that, people talk about, obviously, the really big ones, Nigeria and South Africa, but Kenya and Uganda, to a less extent, have started really innovating in finance, for example. But I think finance is going to be a bust. With this new multipolar order led by Russia and China, what we need to start seeing is more fertilizer manufacture, self-generating energy in Africa from geothermal, obviously roads. Then you'll find that everything follows from there. China did this model. I went to China in 2006. They had one metro line in Shanghai. 10 years later, it's the biggest one in the world by far. They've even got the only maglev, commercially available maglev, and that's a British and German technology, which the British and Germans couldn't make work. There's no reason why things like that couldn't be done in Africa. And Ethiopia, to me, looks like the country. And Kolawole Michael I think he did a few things on Ethiopian innovations, and that can work. So it'd be great to be able to just highlight those. And there's a chap who has a YouTube channel. I think he's a Ghanaian chap, and he speaks fluent Chinese. And he goes around and he shows Chinese people and Europeans, says, where do you think this is? And he shows them African airports or infrastructure, and nobody ever thinks it's Africa. That's a very important thing to do as well. He's doing a great job. I'll find his name and put a link to his YouTube channel on there. He's a friend of Colorwell and Michael as well.
Oh,
okay.
wonderful.
Maybe you can put it in the chat.
That's wonderful. Okay. Actually have a lot of questions to ask you, but the thing is this, we are almost out of time. We are expected to close at 10 p.m.
Okay.
That's 3 minutes. Yeah. So I don't know if you said?
Dr. Hannington. Can we speak to Dr. Hannington if he's here? Just for a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much to the organizers of this discussion, and thank you, my friend Ebusike, the one person who has got the only name that can be reversed and still be the same, Ebube, whichever way you look at it when you write it. You know, there's just I don't really know where to start here, given these discussions. But there's so much input that just proves that we have everything we need. You know, there's no question about that. And I don't know, are we closing in an hour or in a few minutes? Is it an hour from now? How much time do we have?
Actually, we just have a minute, but for your sake, definitely we're going to extend. Let's just extend for more 30 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much.
From how everything is going, I just feel like we have a learn to learn from, you know. So I would
had 10 years ago, you know, this thesis, what is wrong with Africa and what can be done to fix it? And the first thing I found out is that we don't have a plan. And we don't have a pinnacle of organization. And so I went ahead, and I'm a chemical engineer by training in the UK, in Wales. So, you know, because of the time, you know, I'll just go straight to it. This discussion, I hope we can have another one next time. Aspect, I think most of the by talking about the how, by going into the nitty-gritties of it. But everything that we are most of at the bottom has to be structured as a program that can then make sure that everything required, all the components that are required are there to support the system. You know, I've heard, you know, people talked about finance. Is that any finance available? And people talked about the government system, the government's doing, you know, A, B, and C in Africa. And I think that so going back 1 second, this discussion, we need a discussion that has a bias for action. I mean, these discussions are happening, millions of them in Africa, but who is putting things together so that we can say, okay, this is the element of it? Because obviously this technology really is just an element of a transformation process of Africa, but where do we plug it? You know, who's going to take it? Who's going to start it? Who's going to lead it? I think that's why we're having a problem. And we're having a problem that it may not be the discussion about technology, it's discussion about change. We want is obviously transformation. It's this transformation, then it means that transformation led by paradigms. You know, you're trying to build things in an old paradigm where the people in that paradigm, the mindsets in that paradigm, get it, you know, in process. So in fact, Africa does not exist. When we talk from here, we say we're going, you know, people say Africa. Where are you from? You're from Africa, right? As far as the African is concerned, Africa does not exist. We have to put it together. Africa does not have a leader. Any transformation has a leader, has a name. We don't have that. We don't have a vision to make this happen. So, and the components that will make sure that we have achieved what we want. The component, the means, is a key element of it. The value system, the behavior model containing corruption, is a key component of it. The strategy, is it transformational? See, we're talking about an evolutionary transactional process where, hey, let's fix this here, let's fix this element here, let's fix this element here. But without organization and structure and oversight, then we don't get anywhere. And I think we need to move away as Africans and begin to unite. Like this system here, I mean, this discussion could really create a leadership or a committee that can then look at who else is doing what. And at the end of the day, develop it into a program that when a transformational process and plan is being put in place, you are ready to go. And I believe that Africans are ready in every discipline, but what is lacking is organization. At the Africa Union, many people think that the government leaders are going to wake up one day and have some sense, right? These leaders, they can't fix their own countries. They don't know what to do with the capital. In fact, they don't know how to put a transformational concept. And the way this system is designed, doesn't matter how smart you come in Africa as a president. And I can give you an example right now in Zambia, right? We can hear all this that is happening. They're going to get stuck. There's no finance. There's no financial architecture. They have not re-engineered their financial system. It happened in Ghana. It happened even in Rwanda. You may talk about Rwanda as a success. Yes, it is. The emotion is there. The vision is there. But there are two elements that could be done better. Number one, this means is key, which is designing a financial system, a new financial system. The Chinese did it. The South Koreans did it. Everybody who transformed did it. But and then when you talk of Rwanda, for example, their strategy is 50% transformational. Unless it is transformational, then you cannot design the project. You cannot have the philosophy and the mindset to lift up people to that psychology. Because at the end of the day, what any expression that you see in a person's life, organization, or a country is basically particular to the psychology, to the mindset that created the process. And we're not looking, you know, I put together a manual that we call the Riot Act, the African Master Reset, that really amplifies, number one, that the master strategies that we need to reset Africa. But you find that a major proportion of the manual is philosophy and psychology. You see, we see China is in Africa, and by the way, Ethiopia has been colonized by the Chinese. The industrial space has been colonized by the Chinese. So the key thing is this, that unless something has to be done right now. I spent 8 years, 5 of which only reading And the other 3 years I was on Africa in government. I spent 10 months in Zambia. I spent 4 months in Ghana. I couldn't get to see the president or anybody at the top there. The whole system is contained. I couldn't. So we are in a paradigm that doesn't work. We need to go into a new paradigm and structure a new Africa and structure a pinnacle of organization. Because at the African Union, what have you got? There's this impression that the whole nation is talking about this Agenda 2063. When you look at it, it's just aspirations. It is not a vision. There's no means to fulfill it. So the youth of Africa really need to conceptualize and think and say, where do we start? How does the new leadership emerge? You know, that's why the Riot Act, the manual that I wrote, the African Master Reset, is this letter written to the youth to realize that unless you bring in a revolutionary thinking, revolution, I don't mean revolt, I mean radical, drastic transformation. Unless you have that and start at the leadership, then you can now talk about, having a roadmap. In Africa, sense of agency, alignment of a million organizations that we have, a direction, a structure, institutional framework. If you don't have an institutional framework, how are you going to do it? If you don't have structure of all these ideas that we have, science and technology, what's in the diaspora, what's on the continent, what ideas, what business are already there, what engagements are there with the with the foreign nations and so forth. How do we strategize to maximize, the output and fast track ourselves, into this new industrial revolution that is coming? Because we're missing the key thing we are missing in Africa is that every technology, leaves wealth. Eric, all his inventions are making money for somebody else. There could be billions in Africa. Like somebody said, it could have, $50 billion, but our, everybody else is rushing, is going somewhere, but we have not developed a philosophy and a mindset to do it. I want to give you an example. Now, when we talk, if you put economists and if you put technical people, if you put organizers, finance, and so forth in Africa on the table, right? They're going to talk about what is there, right? They're going to talk about what's happening. Each person is talking about their own thing. But the transformational process is a key thing missing. Now, if we get at the table to talk about a transformational process, the idea is like, okay, what is our industrial model going to be, right? There's so many brands, there's so many partnerships that are out there, right? There are millions of them. Let's just talk of a simple thing, trucks, right? Let's talk maybe of fast trains. We're not going to start building our own. We have to form some kind of a partnership. Now, what are we going to do? Have a brand architecture. In other words, a list of the brands in various areas that we want to pursue. Then we do it. And we can only be aware of that if we say, okay, what industrial model in general are we going to structure for ourselves, right? What commercial models, right? What social models? What finance model of it together? Unless we do that, because we are not planned, we're not organized, the other nations are coming. Africa is 80% colonized. The industrial place is 89%. In fact, I would say 90% colonized today. So unless, and then in order to do all that in Africa, you have to throw some of those economic concepts that we have. In fact, the first thing we're going to do is take all the economists, lock them up somewhere for a year, for us to understand that transformation does not need an economist. When you go in, when a new government comes, they should take all the economists away so that you stay, philosophical, you stay innovation, creative innovation, you stay organic. Without the organic aspects, there's no, you can't think of the future. So now a key thing in Africa, if we're going to do this, a key thing in our concept is this new thing that people are talking about, the mission economy. Now, the idea of the mission economy we break down the structure, the architecture of the economy and say there must be a communal aspect of it. And that communal aspect, that the major backbone industries must have a strong government input so that the government puts a lot of money into research, and that research will then from there will rise the different technologies that are driven by that, for space, for security, for a lot of these major areas, for communication, where people like Eric and others can then benefit from that research to put their programs together. A mission economy will say, okay, our African people don't have finance. What are we going to do? How are we going to structure an African finance that has a very strong bias for research, that's got a very strong bias for structure, and to make sure that our people have got no collateral? How are we going to get that financed? We can say, hey, let's get finance. How are you going to finance? They've got no collateral. So we have to come with new ideas that will drive Africa. So a strong emission economy. I mean, the example is that people talk about the iPhone and the Siri and all these things. In Africa, even the internet, it was these were developed and funded by the American government. The Chinese are doing that, and I think that there is need for us to ponder and think that we need a sense of agency to start a pinnacle of organization where we can structure a program and an institutional framework that, what system is going to run this in Africa? What organizations, the structure, the power, the authority, the politics, and the execution, everything, what kind of structure will run it? It's very complex. You see, so we have that, and then we have this program structure, the program design, that all these things that people are talking about under the Rapid Africa Plan that are designed, it's easy. We can connect with universities, right? They've already been paid. You don't have to pay for these cars, for big offices and so forth. But you can only come there when you said, this is where we want to go. This is what we want to do. This is our main mission. This is our structure. And then the technology is an arm of it. So I hope that that can help, because for the sake of time.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you
so
much.
There's Dr. Wumi. Please check if he's around. She probably has a few things to say. Just please, thank you.
I don't know what you just said. Anyway, I can't hear you clearly. Who just said something? Okay, I think your network is bad. Thank you so much, Dr. Hannington. That was really so insightful.
I asked if there's Dr.
Please, can you mute yourself? And
I don't see him. I don't see. Is it a he or a her? I don't see him.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Hannington. That was really insightful, and you really spit fire, and I could also relate to that. Just same thing with what Mr. Eric said about the mindset. I think Africa needs to start from the mindset. We need to have a mindset of strategizing before action. And that being said, I have a question for you about something you just said. Change of mindset actually is not something we just start. We need to go to the grassroots. And talking about that is not just in university level. I think we need to incorporate that into our education system, start catching them young. So what do you think is the best thing or the best way to empower effective learning of STEM education for ordinary Africans, at least to start from young age to have that mindset, innovative mindset, and a kind of mindset of real change, and not just mindset of numbers?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a great question, because I'm glad that you asked that question, because you know, when you are in these WhatsApp groups, you hear people say, Africa, wake up, Africa, Africa, wake up. We need to change our mindset. We need to change our mindset. And, you know, I can say this, for a fact that we are starting at the wrong place. There is no nation in the world, it doesn't exist, and I think it doesn't exist in any other planet as well, where the whole people have to be conscientized before we can move forward. You see, the key thing that we're missing is the science of transformation. You see, we have to look from the top, where we need a transformational leader, somebody that God gives a complete, very clear picture of what Africa is going to be. And then that leader will find a team of people, and they clarify the vision, and then they decide what they're going to do. Then education is an element of it. See, when you look at the African culture, is where we have a problem, because our thinking space has been cut off, because everything has been planned for us, and our culture is broken. Culture is the container of information, including the technologies, the advancing principles, and the value systems. It's a container of that. And so now we are missing the point that transformation is going to come from a few people. We need to find out who is the transformational leader in Africa, and start and have a roadmap. Under that roadmap, we need a program design. Under that program design, we have the cultural element, and we have all the other elements that are there: education, social advancement, the standard and the quality of life that we want to look at. In Africa, we need to have a leadership that has the mindset that we call the excellence of existence. In other words, we see in the future our people having an excellent life. That's where it starts. So people, they don't know what it is that they're looking for. They don't know what it looks like, but when they see it, they will know in Africa. And so it doesn't need to be, it doesn't come from the bottom. It comes from the top. What we're needing in Africa is to have a plan for us to sit down together. I spent 2 years, like I said, went to Ghana. I couldn't get to the system. The secretary to the president threw it away, said, no, we can't do that, right? I went to Zambia. Zambia had a team there. We couldn't get to the president. In Malawi, I spent 2 months. I couldn't get the president. The vice president overjacked the thing and set up the president. And everybody in here understand that the African Union, there's nothing happening there. We have to create a new transformational structure to drive Africa forward. And it starts from the top. Every answer, what I call a pinnacle of organization. So there's no upgrading of a mindset from the bottom to go. It's a process that takes 30 years to accomplish. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Okay, I would love to I don't know who's interrupting me. I would love to give the audience the floor. If you have your question, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay. But if you don't have, I will just go straight to the chat box. Anybody have a question?
I have a question.
I can saw Timmy, you wrote a whole note. If you can unmute yourself and ask your question, else I might read out your question for the speaker.
Yes, I think I have a last question. Sorry, wait, am I going?
No, sorry, Ria. I would love to give the audience the floor now.
Okay.
Or I'll pick a question from the chat box first, please, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
No, thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. Hello.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Thanks. Well, my question goes to Mr. Masaba and everyone as well. My name is Edmond. So right now I'm in Yiwu City in China here. So first of all, I have two questions. So before the question, I clearly heard what Mr. Masaba said and the last speaker. So I just want to throw in some words first. When I go to the normal App Store, for example, iOS and Google Play Store, so I see a lot of applications there and programs. So that means that all those app developers like myself and other guys, WeChat, WhatsApp, Tencent, other stuff. So all their programs are being embedded into these app stores. So for example, now in China, China have their own cloud, which hosts other apps. So which means that whenever you want to open an app of iOS, for example, you are going to subject it to China's cloud. Although iOS is for US, like the main cloud is in the US, but China has partitioned that part. So my question is, all these developers, technologies, companies, every single app that is on the China cloud, they are monetizing it and they are cashing out very, very, very high on high amount. For example, now Nigeria or West Africa or Africa in general, when you download any app in Africa, you can download it. It's accessible. So which means Google, Instagram, Facebook, all these big companies in terms of wherever they do, the African people in particular are using this gadget, like this, their data stuff every single time. And from my calculation, Nigeria alone has about, if I'm not mistaken, about 40 to 50 million users of Facebook alone, active users. What about Instagram? What about Facebook? So just imagine, so if you run the calculations very well, over $1 million is being consumed data-wise, Nigerian alone, not to talk of Africa. So my question to Mr. Masaba is quite long. Why don't Africa or a particular country in Africa, let's say Nigeria, because I'm Nigerian, why don't we put a partition, like why don't Africa have their cloud such that every other applications, every other website, technological team, they must subject themselves to that cloud so that the African continent can be taxing those applications first, because those are revenues. Those are huge revenues. Because now in China,
okay, you have just few seconds to round up your question, please.
Okay, sure. So Mr. Masaba, what do we need to do? Why don't the African continent create their own cloud so that they can monetize every single technological things coming in? I think that's the real smartness there. Because if you check, we have Google Drive, Google Documents, Google Play, all those lot of packages. Those are billions of dollars in revenues every year. So Mr. Masaba, I hope you can clearly explain that part on how we can do such. Thanks.
Yep. What I would say is, firstly, if there are two ISPs, one is very large, one is very small, it actually hurts the smaller ISP to partition itself away from the bigger ISP. Until Africa's got more intellectual and strategic depth in the stuff we've created, that would be suicide. We'd cut ourselves off and it wouldn't work. China waited until it had got near parity before it started segmenting and doing its own thing. Russia has always been really far ahead in military technology, for example, and they can do things with China to catch up with the West, which they will. That's what they're doing with their mere payment system, which they've taken at least 8 years, probably longer, bringing it up. So ultimately, in the medium to long term, absolutely, that's something that Africa should start to do in order to not exactly protect markets, but to foment growth amongst the intellectuals there. However, right now, that would be a self-defeating step. I think if you can get more people starting to develop things in Africa for African problems, rather than trying to go and work for the West. I mean, I grew up in the West. I spent my first 2 years in Africa, and have never been back. But fundamentally, I see that as a huge opportunity, ripe for growth. So I think it's not actually a good idea to start to segment. That would actually be detrimental to Africa's development. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Eric. So have your question in the chat box. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello.
Go on. We can hear you. Go on.
In addition to what Eric has said, it's still within the same realm. That's precisely what Dr. Hannington has mentioned. We need a system that understands what is missing and defines how to ensure that what is missing can be retrieved or created within a time frame. So, talking about an architecture, a model with which Africa must undertake, and establish growth. This is very important. And truth be told, a lot of us are somewhere at the center, but we need a leadership that can conceptualize this model by having the right set of people, who can help drive this. And this is where I would say the state of the Africa diaspora, which I'm a member of the government. It's a new government. We've basically been around for not more than 4 years. And the vision of the Prime Minister is precisely, to be able to tap into the kinds of things that are being discussed here, from what Dr. Hannington is saying, from the points of view of Dr. Alexander, Eric Masaba. It's to be able to drive an Africa that is extremely aware, one that has been, if I would say, propaganda, like weaponized, a weaponized African mind that is awake, one that understands competitiveness, one that understands that we need to structure those possibilities that are within our grasp by assembling elements all in an organizational manner, where we can gradually tap into what is out there, reverse engineer it for our own use, and then gradually over time competitively grow ourselves, you understand, my dear, to be able to hold our own, forte. This is possibly the only way. And that is the reason why this assembly and this particular discourse is of extreme importance. In fact, when it is put together, it would be to share this with certain key people in privileged positions across Africa, and then lobby in order to be able to crystallize, to ensure that this becomes a framework for a government to undertake. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much.
I may be allowed to come in for a second. Just to accentuate what has been said. I don't know. I'd like us Africans, like maybe members, brothers and sisters that are here, to stand on your head, and just begin to see how it works, standing on your head. In other words, then we can forget everything else. You see, how do you do something without organization? How do you do something without leadership? Now, anybody who has run any organization, but I think it's not as simple as that, because a lot of nations, organizations, highly educated people, master's degrees, PhDs, they fail in terms of crisis to transform. Now, I want to give you a very simple example. Like any of your countries, right? And you look at their development plan today, and I'd like you to apply this formula to see whether it's going to succeed or not. Number one, does it have the means, right? They have a vision. It's a bridge that takes them there. And that bridge is supported by 3 pillars. Number one, do they have the means? Pillar number one. Number two, value system, behavior, ethical code, corruption, right? Do they have an ethical code to contain corruption? No. Strategy, is it transformational, right? So you're going to find, it will take me 15 minutes to find that out, because everything that's happening in Africa is not transformational strategy, because it's coming straight from through the United Nations, from Europe, right? And now China. So the strategy is not there. So the bridge doesn't fall, that doesn't stand. We talk about Africa. Which president in Africa do you think can accept anything that we have and understand it and create a process when they can't even create backbone industries for people to feed themselves? So this process, we need to move away from the idea that the existing government system is going to do anything. And one of the key elements that I think we are forgetting, what people have handed their authority, this idea that the constitution is the ultimate law of the land it's not a true concept. The authority comes from the people. Sovereign authority is the ultimate law, is the ultimate everything, because all the laws come from there. Now we, the people, have got the right, the authority, the sovereign power to say when a system does not work for the people, when a system does not stand for the people, it's not a system of the people anymore. And so we have the right to start afresh, create a new paradigm and structure it and say, how do we transition from there? And I think this is what we're missing. And I think that this discussion is trillions of dollars. It's so important. This is trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in Africa. And I suggest that, like, Ebube just mentioned, that there needs to be a committee that then engages other areas from this. We don't have a sense of agency. We need a roadmap. Unless we have that, we need structure and institutional framework. Anything that has been suggested here is not going to happen without an institutional framework. And if it's institutional framework, is it the existing one? No, it doesn't. Finally, we have to understand the idea. Somebody says, what you see on the outside of a man is what's on the inside of a man. Everything is psychological, right? Now, there are two leadership styles. Number one, it's called subsistence of existence. So when you look at Africa, the leadership mindset is a subsistence of existence. They think that, they can take care of themselves. If you give each one $10 trillion, the Africans, they don't know what to do with it, because they don't have a conception of the second leadership style, that is excellence of existence, that says, well, our people can really live a great life that is greater than the Chinese, greater than the Germans, the Europeans, the Americans, because we have everything that we need. We have the number one organic creative power in Africa, and we have things to result to support it. And Africans are, we have 1,000 or 10,000 Africans for each thing that we want to build in Africa. Everything is ready. But unless we realize that, time is moving. We need a sense of agency. We need to learn to snowball. Once we get together like this, let's create an action plan. Once we get together like this, let's create an action plan. So I want to invite people that are interested here, and I think you should all be interested. Number one, to read the RAP. There's one, if you're really a revolutionary, read the Riot Act. If you're just someone that just needs things done, read the RAP. And I think Ebube, he has a copy. I can send it to him. I've put my number online there, right? Let's get together. Right now, I took 7 months leave. I'm about to go into Africa right now. And George, is it Eric? Eric, I put my number in there. I want to be in touch with you because key is finance. I want us to talk about that. So if we can, get a team of people that become the genesis of this pinnacle of organization, how do we create it? An ultimate leadership in Africa from the people that are here. I'm about to go back into Africa and make this happen. And a key element of it all, I think Eric mentioned it, we can We can blame the British, we can blame the Americans, we can blame this. There's a strong part of our wealth, from a reparations point of view, from an industrial technology experience point of view that we need. And the idea that we cannot start Africa without an immediate partnership, a structured, strategic, non-political and non-hegemonic partnership from outside. We can't do Africa without without that. So what do we do, brothers and sisters? Like, I put my phone number there. Ebube is there. We're working together. Let's do something to organize ourselves with a sense of urgency. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
I would love to appreciate our speakers, and thank you so much for joining in. In fact, I would say that this webinar is really wonderful. So I would love to call upon Ms. Emilia to come and specially thank our speakers and our participants. Over to you, Ms. Emilia.
Thank you so much for everyone who joined us this evening. And right now it would be 10 in the morning, maybe in Houston, Texas, my hometown. I was very happy to see we have two guests here that are currently in the United States, Dr. Alexander and our last guest. I'm not sure if they mentioned where they are in the state right now. I would definitely hope that Mr. Michael can have a follow-up of this program. That way we can be able to ask our questions. I had a lot of questions personally because I lived in America pretty much all my life. And I have a lot of questions to ask, especially those of you that are now in America, to see how we can maybe help Africa in terms of technology. And I know they have a lot of grants, and how we can put our heads together and tap into that kind of field. But our time has escaped us. So at this moment, Mr. Michael, if you would give the vote of thanks. Those of you who choose to stay, I know I'm going to stay, even though I have church tomorrow morning. But it's because I have some questions. If those speakers that have time to stay, please feel free to stay and we can ask you some questions. Mr. Mike, why don't you thank our speakers, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Emilia Bywaters. We appreciate your contributions and everything. We particularly want to appreciate our speakers for tonight. I mean, you have all gave a brilliant input, and there's this saying that knowing what to do is half of getting what you want. You have already given us the blueprint of what Africa needs to facilitate the development, and we assure you that this is going to be documented for the younger ones to see all your valuable contributions. Definitely, this is not going to be the last we are going to have of this webinar. We are going to continue. We are going to have part 2 because I can see many of our speakers still have some ideas to share, but because of time constraints, we have to suspend it to part 2 of this great webinar. I want to personally appreciate Mr. Ebube, Ambassador Ebube George. We appreciate you for bringing on board wonderful speakers tonight. I particularly want to appreciate Dr. Alessandra Anim Mensah. I want to say Akwaba to you. And I want to appreciate Dr. Annington. Yes, Dr. Annington. Yeah, we appreciate your contribution tonight, and we assure you that this is not going to be the last. We are still going to bring you on board. I love this.
May that say.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and Eric Masaba, my good friend, we actually met on a flight from Qingdao to Shanghai, and from the departure till arrival, he blew my minds off with various myriads of his innovations, and I'm so happy that you are part of the team of speakers tonight. We are still coming back to you. We still need more of your insights, because from what you reveal on that day, I know that it's just what you just gave tonight is just a tip of the iceberg. I know you still have a lot to share. So I also want to appreciate Eliza W. We saw you, and Elode Kosono, then Eze Okeke Uchena, Joyce Ada, we saw you, and Melovia, and our president, our able president, the president of Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, Mr. Opoze G.O. Jeffrey. We appreciate your contribution, and we are so sure that when we call on you the second time, when we're having the party, you will oblige us. Thank you so much. And Patricia Nkwani, our evergreen contributor, we appreciate you for always making it possible for us to have your presence. Unfortunately, you are not able to contribute tonight. Maybe before we round up, we are still going to have one or two things. So don't go away. Then Timmy, we appreciate you. Then Mr. Tundo Mitogu, one of our able moderators. We know you have a question to ask. We are still going to continue, but this is just giving a vote of thanks for those who are, present and they want to go. We are still continuing. So then, Timmy, that's right. We appreciate you. And my brother, I made that mistake last time, but I won't make it this time around. Ken Echo, I left him out last time, and he protested. My good brother from Cameroon is also one of our moderators. We appreciate you, your contribution and everything. And we are still continuing, and from now we are going to have our able host, Constellation is going to hand over is going to take charge of the meeting for the next 1 month. So we believe that you will keep it up with us. You keep following us every weekend. So we are not closing now. We are still continuing. So thank you, Lord. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. And we believe you must have learned one or two things from the different speakers of tonight. Thank you so much. Miss Emilia Bywaters, Daily Nuggets. Back to you.
So I can ask my questions now because okay.
Mr. Cancellation, if you would please stop reporting at this point. So let us informally ask some of those
Mr.
questions.
Masaba, I'm still waiting for you. I have some questions, Mr. Masaba, please. A very concrete and critical question.
Recording first. Can you please stop recording?
That man won't allow you to rest today.
Mr. Masaba, please.
You are in for it tonight.
Stop recording.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to reclaim the host. I don't know. They've stopped it, right?
Yeah, go on and claim. Yeah, claim the host and then stop recording.
Okay. I think it will be very.
The recording has stopped.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Masaba, please, can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Mr. Masaba, I'm talking. Okay, I'm talking from the economic side now. Focusing on statistics. I have the data, but I will just give a rough estimate just for our discussion. Mr. Masaba, there is one thing to be smart. There's another thing to know how to use smart people. I'm trying to develop some points first before I give you the question. Google Play Store, Mr. Masaba, is making over, I won't exaggerate, billions of dollars, if not more, in revenue. Facebook does the same thing. Instagram does the same thing, and all those platforms. Now, when you check the statistics carefully, not the fake statistics, there's some real statistics, because all the stuff they publish online, they are all fake, but let's assume they are credible. When you check the statistics online, who are the users? Who actually use mobile phone more? The Africans. Nigeria is the key because we're 200. I'm Nigerian. We're 200 millions. Every Nigeria, if not almost all, about 80 million users. They use mobile phones with internet. So my point is, all these informations, sending of messages, all those are money, all those are data translated into MTN, communications, flowing of informations, paying on stuff online. All those are revenues Nigerians, Africans had, and funds that is passing through the store, the app stores. Okay, so what I'm saying now is that all these stores, I mean, Google Play Store in particular and iOS in general. So all these things are incomes, okay, into the US economy through all these platforms. So if we do not, I repeat, if we do not monetize these things, how then does the African Internet of Things? Because now I'm sure you are aware, when you go online, you see a lot of YouTubers, all those people putting videos. Every single video they put is a revenue. In short, they are subjecting themselves, but they don't know. They are subjecting themselves into the US economy. Because when you put more videos, people get views. And while getting the views, I myself, I also run campaign on YouTube. And you see, so money is leaving the Africa. I'm focusing on Africa right now. Money is leaving the Africa into the US through all this social media platform that is being controlled by the Westerners. So my questions to you is, don't you think monetizing, don't you think we Africans having our own space, don't you think is a major factor for our development and growth? That's the question.
Yes,
statistics wise,
of
I have
course
the
it
data
is.
I can send to you. Yeah.
Well, of course it is. But can you tell me why France doesn't dominate global internet?
Yeah.
France had a version of the internet in the 1970s called Minitel. It was in every home. You could actually have a small screen. You could look at people's phone numbers, send them messages. This was 20 odd years before the rise of World Wide Web. It was still internet, but there was no World Wide Web. That was one of the first major commercial browsers. It was ran only in France. When I was at a French university doing an exchange year, we had something called Trombinoscope, which was basically Facebook, but in French. And this was in 1997, and it had been going for about 10 years. So the French had everything ahead of time, and yet they don't dominate the IT space. They call informatique, which is computer science and whatever else, they call everything numerique, so digital's numerique. What this boils down to is just pure power of the United States. They took over after World War II, basically all the intellectual property of all their allies and the defeated nations of Germany and Japan. You could argue in World War I and II were basically German patent heists. All the basis of American economic strength came from patents taken from Britain and Germany after World War II, whether it's a jet engine, whether it's self-sealing fuel tanks, radar, and I've sent a link to something like this. They took even more from Germans. So they will never allow a nation to stand up and have anything different. If you've got something they want, they will literally just take it. As Professor Hannington said, and also Mr. Michael said, what we've got to actually do is firstly get ourselves in order to be able to make more use of things that have come before. We've basically been economically, the globe has been colonized by the American financial system. For the first time in maybe 100 years, we are seeing a real pushback from the Chinese and the Russians and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. You don't have to like China's policies, you don't have to like Russia's policies, but they offer a pathway to self-determination that would never be allowed in the United States. The United States has done that to Britain as well. There's a lot of things, RSA encryption, that was British. They just took it off the British and said, oh, these three Americans, Rivers, Shaw, and Edelman, made it up. It was actually a British GCHQ worker called Clifford Cox, and another the guy called Ellis. So if you try and go up against, if you were fighting a war against an enemy which has satellites, which has tactical ballistic missiles, which has a C4 ISR system, which can see you in real time, you can't go and fight them one-on-one directly. You'll just get slaughtered. You've got to have a different strategy, and you have to be patient and figure out a way to build your bases in your country, get people. I think one of the best ways is to start pushing STEM education to 2 and 3 year olds. Make it cool to be a math nerd. One of the best things I've seen in recent years was the Black Panther films, because that made it okay for young Black people to be seen as smart and intelligent and liking science. That's going to do more than trying to create any sort of version of Alibaba Cloud or Google. Remember, the Chinese only did that after they had significant economic power. There's no European country that can do that, because they're all vassals of the United States hegemonic empire. Africa is a long way from doing that.
Yeah, Mr. Masaba, I live in Doha before. In Qatar and in Dubai, I'm very sure about Qatar, they don't use YouTube. Mr. Masaba, in China here right now, there are about 10,000 Nigerian people who are studying here. About 65% of the people are self-sponsored people. Mr. Masaba, the money coming into China every year for school fees alone is up to the national budget of Nigeria. Mr. Masaba, you can check the statistics of China trade between China and all the countries. Nigeria is over 25 billion US, the same thing. Mr. Masaba, China is controlling their airspace and they are the #1 now in trade in the world. So what you're saying right now is the past story. What about today's story? Why can't you use China as an example, Mr. Masaba?
Well, China is actually
because that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah. Well, they're building infrastructure in Africa, which in 60 or 70 years, there wasn't very much built by the former colonial empires. Admittedly, they were on their knees after World War II, but it didn't really help too many people. What I would say is that if you have a critical mass of Africans in Africa, or people who want to return to Africa after being studied abroad, you're going to find that those things, especially if there's a roadmap and there's a way they can see that they can benefit Africa, you're going to find those things appear. We have the same problems even in regions in the UK. They're most of the regions outside London. London sucks away all the talent. So in the Northwest, in the Midlands, in the North